Greetings, Kerbonauts. This is Kerbal Space Program. I'm Bob Fitch, and this is episode number 26 of the Gateway Project, and we are supposed to be launching the S6 Truss. And I've had some people telling me, why aren't you using a space shuttle? Why aren't you at least using an SSTO? Well, since the Gateway Project is basically all about spatial and temporal anomalies, I suppose out there somewhere in the universe, or in the multiple universes that exist all together, there probably is a Bob Fitch who is currently launching on a space shuttle, and another one who might be launching on an SSTO. In fact, we might be looking into a glimpse of another reality right now where some other Bob Fitch is launching an SSTO version of the S6 Truss. He might have it sitting on top of a very small fuel tank surrounded by all kinds of air intakes on Rapier engines. It might be generating really cool looking smoke trails behind itself on its way up to deliver that S6 to his KSS, where it's going to dock onto the starboard side of the whole assembly that provides all of that solar power, finishing off the entire integrated truss segment. It might be arriving at the KSS right now, where it's about to decouple and start making its way over there. At this point, pretty much the same as any rocket would if it got this far. He might be about to decouple his orbital injection stage. Well, technically it's an SSTO. The whole thing is orbital injection, right? He might be about to decouple it where it's sort of still pointing at the station and then think to himself, oh my, what have I done? Is that about to hit my station and explode and destroy it and send it into a billion pieces? And then realize that it's actually going way past the station and everything is safe. And he might be docking his S6 right as we speak. Or he might be hearing from people who think that he should do a grasshopper-style launch, where he launches on a rocket where the first stage, once it gets high enough, actually decouples its upper stage, which goes on toward the station in a normal rocket launch, which would be so trivial that you wouldn't even need to watch it. He might even have a little engine in the middle of that whole stack at the bottom of his rocket that overheated and exploded. But everything was probably okay when that happened, and so he went on with the launch. And then it might have decoupled and slowed itself down a little bit, while the rest of the rocket powers up and heads off into deeper space. And then he might flip that lower stage around to get it ready to bring back to the KSS, putting on his engines to continue slowing himself down even more, and then aiming back toward the KSS so that he can, not KSS, the KSC, the Space Command, where he could then open up his landing gear on his way back down over the runway, hoping to land somewhere near the launch pad, but as long as he gets somewhere close to the Space Center, he'd be happy with that. Slowing himself down even further, and as he gets closer to the ground, he might throw on those rocket engines that lifted him up in the first place, blasting them as fast as he can and coming down on those little legs where hopefully they will hold his rocket up, hopefully also not tipping over in the process. Perhaps it might seem like it's about to tip over and oh geez, and then recover it. One of those things might have happened in an alternate universe, but that's not our universe. In our universe, our Bob Fitch likes to launch things on regular rockets, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to wait for his orbit to come over the KSC and then launch a regular old rocket because that's what he likes, sending it up to the KSS and docking that exact same S6 Truss the same way that he would on an SSTO or on a grasshopper-style launch. Greetings, Kerbonauts. This is Kerbal Space Program. I'm Bob Fitch, and this is episode number 26 of the Gateway Project, in which we are launching the S6 Truss. And right here, we have just decoupled our first stage and released the fairing to expose that S6 and send it up to the KSS, where we will dock on to the station on the starboard side and complete that integrated truss. Once again, I am shooting for one of those surface-to-orbit rendezvous. How close have we come? Oh my, look at that one. Look at this. Look at this. No, I'm not that guy. I'm a different guy. Anyway, so here we are. It looks like we've done a pretty good job of lining that up. We just now need to circularize and make our way over, so it won't be long now before it's complete and the brand new intro that you already saw can be completed in the future of the past, or something like that. I don't know. It's all very confusing when dealing with spatial and temporal anomalies, right? The S6 Truss was originally launched on the Discovery Space Shuttle STS-119 in March 2009. By completing the truss, enough power was being brought in that they could pretty much power anything that they wanted on the station. It allowed for full power to all the life support systems, which then allowed an additional set of crew to come up. So at that point, anywhere from 6 to 10 astronauts could be on the ISS at any given time. And you just saw our injection stage is heading back off to the planet to be destroyed. Meanwhile, the S6 is about to dock up here, and ever so gently, oh, stay on target. So we are coming in there, and as soon as we dock up, bam, we are done. The integrated truss can now extend the solar panels. Those things are about 34 meters long by 12 meters wide in the real world. I scale them down to the 60% that's in our world here, and we have roughly about 20 meters by 7. I think because these are the Cosmos Pack solar panels, they're a little bit bigger than the 20 meters, but I'm okay with bigger. Bigger's better, right? So now Bob has to go out there and pull all those little things off and stash them away in that crate that came up attached already to the side specifically for this purpose. So he can just stuff all that stuff in there for it to deorbit. Those jets obviously provide a great deal more maneuverability as I'm coming in to dock up, but I certainly don't need them once everything is in place. We're getting a real good view of that S6 right here as Bob heads down to the orbital tug that put it into place, sticking that crate on the side there so that later when we deorbit, it will take that stuff with it. Yeah, we're getting a real good look. In our world, that weighed almost 16 tons. It's quite a bit less in my world here. Bob's just kind of going down the station, getting a good look at everything, because now that it's done, he really wants to take it in. Let's take a look at that truss all the way from one end to the other. It's looking good. So he's going to go back inside now. Yeah, those panels, they are made of 82, well, the whole big thing, each one of them is made of 82 panels of solar panels with little 8 by 8 centimeter squares. And here we are back up at Minmus. Remember how we had a little bit of debris that still needed to come down from last episode? Well, it's making its way down now. I didn't quite hit the mountain I was trying to hit, but there's still some fuel left. So we just go smash into the wall here, and now we finally have this one out of the air. Bill is happy again. Ground crews at some point can come and collect this. It doesn't count as orbital debris as long as it's on the surface, so that's fine. The downside of blowing this up is not everything blew up. These little bits, they begin rolling down the surface of Minmus. Because of the hill and the low gravity, those things just roll and roll forever. I had to walk away from my computer again and come back later for it to be done. So now we have something special. Yes, indeed, Kerbonauts. That is my Soyuz FG TMA-15 replica. Although on our world, the astronauts were completely different from the astronauts that are going up in the little Kerbal world here that we're glimpsing into in this alternate universe. Nonetheless, the fact remains we are bringing up 3 additional Kerbals to the station. So there will be 6 from now on serving up on that station, just like in our dimension, how there were generally 6 astronauts serving on the ISS after that S6 finally went into place. Because it is generating the 32.8 kilowatts of DC power using over 16,000 of those silicon photovoltaic cells. And I said earlier that's made of 82 panels of those, with those 8 centimeter by 8 centimeter little panels. Throughout the entire day, that whole big assembly is constantly rotating on those joints that I showed in a previous episode, which allow the panels to rotate. I can't really do that myself because mine are on Infernal Robotics little rotators there, but in our world those are always going. So there's a really good look at our Soyuz TMA, a momentary power outage just because we needed to get the solar panels out, but now they're out and we're getting close to the station. I had to modify this Soyuz craft in order to get it to be able to do a couple things. For one, we have that node, that kind of spherical node up on the top. I got that from the Porkworks mod. But I had to scale it down quite a bit in order to make have it be the right size. Also, that pod that I've been using from AIES right there in the middle, normally it's only supposed to carry 1 Kerbal, and I'm cramming 3 of them in there, just like how in the real deal there's 3 cosmonauts or astronauts or whatever crammed inside that little baby, at least until they get up into orbit when they can get out and maybe move up into the upper section or something. But until then, we have the 3 of them just stuffed in there like little sausages. Although I didn't want to feel like I was cheating, so even though I bumped up the number of crew that could be inside that capsule, I also bumped up the mass of the capsule so that the entire thing up there is about the same as the MK-12, which weighs 4 tons. And so my Porkworks module is weighing 2 tons, or has a mass of 2 tons, and my capsule also has a mass of 2 tons. And I wouldn't use them separated anyway, so I think that's pretty fair. And now we are docked. The crew is on board and they're moving into the station. I'm going to put them in different modules to have them carrying out various functions like helping with command and control or conducting experiments and doing science. So now we will take a look at that S6 truss in the vehicle assembly building. You are at this point quite familiar, I'm sure, with the 3.75 expanded rocket there that lifts up a lot of my larger modules. And I have another tug on the end of it, where I did modify it just a little bit from previously, where I put some extra RCS jets on there just to make sure that I can get it over to the station quicker, because I wanted to drop it off a little bit further away and then bring it over slowly, but not too slowly. So we'll take that tug off there, and that leaves us now with the S6 itself. You've seen this before. I put this on here to take those little RCS jets and deorbit them, and we of course have some lights all around the outside and the docking node on the end of it. We have the Cosmos Pack solar panels, the big solar panels attached up here to these plates and these hinges, 2 of them, 1 on each side. This was attached to the tug. That would normally be gone with the tug when the tug is gone. Then we have our radiators and a bunch of batteries around it, because in the real world this is a battery sort of module. It helps store a lot of that electrical energy that's being brought in by that S6 truss. I'm simulating cooling systems with these parts that are welded into the whole thing right here. Those have been emptied of any xenon, and they're made to look like they are instead ammonia tanks. And getting down to where there's nothing else left on it other than I put a mech jeb on here just to show the part count, and you can see it is now 2. So if we take that mech jeb off, this is one large part that has been welded together with the UBO welding mod. But I'm sure that what a lot of you out there are really interested in is my recreation of the Soyuz TMA. So this is a Soyuz FG. The FG stands for frigate, which means that it has an extra special orbital tug that's up in the top. We'll get to that in a moment. If we take off these, let's begin at the bottom and work our way up. In order to get this to be a little bit more accurate, I reduced the thrust on just on the boosters. I reduced the thrust on the boosters to get it down to a 1.8 thrust to weight, which is probably still a little bit higher, but I'm a little bit lazy and I don't want to wait forever for my launches, so I let it be a bit higher than in real life. We'll take a look at one of the boosters and then I'll just delete them all, because of course they're all going to be the same thing repeated. I just put a couple lights on it here, and we have the engines in a stack of 4 underneath there. And of course, that's all on a decoupler. I had to do a little trick to get the engines to be lined up just the way I wanted them. So if we scroll down here, you can see that what I did was I created this plate. Just like you can see down at the bottom here, I have this plate and I put on it these. So I'm just going to show you how I did that actually right now. We begin with one of these, and I stick this on the side like that so that I can gain access to it easily once it's got the engine on it. Then I go in here and I get whichever engine I want to have on it. So let's say I want that one. Next, I take it by the part that I originally had, flip it over if I need to, and then symmetry into 4 symmetry and slide it to exactly where I want it to be. Say right about there. And then, because I didn't want to see all this stuff, the cool thing about the way that I just attached these is I didn't actually use up the node that's on the bottom of the fuel tank yet. These are essentially surface mounted to the bottom of that engine, and that middle node is still there. It's usable. And so I go in here and I take one of these adapters and I flip it over, and then you see that node in there. Then you can just lift it up inside and click it onto the bottom node, and that sort of helps cover up the bottom of the engines just a little bit. That exact same trick can be used similarly to that to put engines. Let's say you want to put the engines on that instead, because I want to put them on the bottom of the booster. So then I just go like this, set the symmetry like that, and now they're attached to the bottom plate. If we go find one of those fuel tanks, now all we have to do is take that and we can move all the engines at once up underneath the booster, and there we go. We have engines on the booster, and then we just replicate the booster 4 times and we have the boosters all around the outside. Moving our way up, I'm just going to pull away the fuel tanks because we don't really care about those. This is an AIES decoupler that normally is too small for what I wanted it to be, so I simply went to the part file and I created a new one that looked exactly like this one, and I told it that I wanted it to be double scale, and that's why I have one of those at the higher resolution there. This is an procedural fairing that covers up the interstage, and those are just 4 AIES engines on the bottom of the 3rd stage. The third stage goes into some 6S compartments, where you can see I have placed some batteries to make sure I have enough power in order to deorbit later, as well as a remote tech antenna, a CPU, and a gyroscope. Now, I have been receiving some questions about how I get things to be mounted inside those 6S compartments. Well, I'm going to show you right now. So what you do is, let's say you don't have any 6S compartments yet, and you want to get some stuff inside them. So the first thing you do is you actually put the 6S's on there. Because remember, these nodes can only be attached to one other thing. I covered that in a previous video. So you can see here the big green ball right there at the bottom of that stage and the one at the top of the 6S compartment. Those are the two that are going to connect together. So I want to connect those. And then I'm going to do it again here. And those are connected. And then we want to put in the fuel tank. I took one of these as my fuel tanks. Now, how do I get stuff inside? Well, you just open up the 6S compartments now, and you surface mount things on the inside. So let's say I want to put a CPU and a gyroscope in there to give it more stability and some control for when I want to deorbit it. Well, obviously, I have used up the nodes that are inside. We used them to connect the 6S compartments to each other, and then those to the fairing on the top and the fuel tank on the bottom. So the two dots, you can see them over here on the left. I'm shaking this around. There's two dots on there to represent the connection nodes, but they have nothing to connect to in there. Well, that's okay. We have a little trick we can do with a cubic strut. Take a cubic strut, put it inside right about on the middle, turn off the symmetry to get only one of them, stick it right about in the middle, and now suddenly you have some additional docking points, so to speak, that you can put stuff on. And now I have a gyroscope hidden inside. Also, the gyroscope itself only used its bottommost node, connector node, in order to connect to the surface-mounted strut, which means the top node is still available, which means I can put that on the top node. This is the same thing that I've done in past videos in order to get things like life support, circular life support modules inside my 6S compartments. So if we take a look, let's say I have some water here, maybe a bigger one. Let's go for the big one. That's a good sized food. Let's say we want some food in there. So we just take the food, and now if it looks like it isn't connecting up, there's a couple tricks you can do. See how it's not connecting for me right now? You can either, well, you can move it higher up, like right there, it's connecting to the top one. Or sometimes you can just shift it around a little bit and it'll eventually connect up. And then other times, if you rotate, not rotate that way, if you rotate them like this, notice how it switches sometimes in and out of being able to dock up. Right there, it's getting crazy. It doesn't know what to do. But I just keep rotating it around, and eventually I can find a spot that it might like. And if that doesn't work, well, there, this worked again. So it's a little finicky. You just have to stick with it. Once you have one of those in there, you can then attach things to the top of it the same way that you stack anything, because now they have some nodes that are available to connect things together again. Continuing on, if we take that away, on the top, I have a KW Rocketry 2.5 meter fairing. I put this on top of the Soyuz that had the escape tower already. So by putting that on first, if I take this and I stick one side on, and then I can take that escape tower, put it right there, then put the next one on, and it looks like it's all part of the same thing. And as long as I blow the fairing and then the escape tower separately, they'll all go, and it'll look right once it's decoupling and doing all that stuff in orbit. So let's take those away as well. Now we get into some really interesting stuff here in the recreation of the Soyuz itself. I originally said when I started this that we had a frigate tug. Well, that's this right here. This is a frigate tug. It pretty much looks just like that. It has the engine on the bottom, it has a fuel tank, and it has some ability to control it. These are batteries and remote tech. That way I could deorbit it later. That was connected through the proper sized AIES decoupler. Once we have those gone, we're looking at, and we'll take away this as well, we're looking at the actual Soyuz capsule now. So I'll continue working from the bottom. I put some RCS jets on there because the whole thing, it is powered in my case, not by a bipropellant, but by a monopropellant. So maybe a little bit inaccurate, but I didn't want to spend a lot of space and mass on putting in two different types of propellant. So I did it this way, where I just have these for propulsion. These represent a couple antenna that help it stay in communication, as well as being really in communication using our remote tech antenna. We have some solar panels from the AIES mod, surface lights, AIES, RCS jets, put in some extra struts. Those come from Cosmos. This is a sun sensor. So the real thing, it has on it a sun sensor on one side, and it has some ground earth sensors on the other side. That helps it stay oriented as it's moving through space on its way to its destination. If we continue through here, you can see that I did another 6S compartment with surface mounted things in there. I have my MechJeb just for the instrumentations. Remember, I do not use MechJeb for automation. The only thing I have it for is automated SAS, because it's easier to find nodes by clicking point toward my node, point toward my retro vector or whatever, and just then not needing to worry about it, all that tedious manipulation of keeping it pointed in the right direction all the time. But other than that, no automation. I do everything myself. So we have our batteries in there, the MechJeb, a extra supply of oxygen, because just like in the real thing, we need to have some oxygen. So we got the 6S connected to the monopropellant at the bottom, which is then connected to another AIES decoupler, some lights. At the top, this is the Porkworks mod, circular orbital whatever it's called in that. We got our docking node. We have a Kurz antenna that helps keep it oriented when it's going in for docking. This is a real shoot / SDHI combined docking node and parachute module. And finally, we have the AIES return capsule with a heat shield that I have added from Deadly Reentry on the bottom. This capsule has been modded by me in order to be more massive, but also be able to contain 2 extra Kerbals, so it contains 3 instead of 1. And that is it. Okay, Kerbonauts, as you can see, we are way over the 20-minute mark, but I did warn you previously that I just don't seem to be able to get enough done in 20 minutes to really show all the things that I'm trying to do at the same time, because we got the Minmus base and the space station and the different types of launches and the disassembly of the vehicles and everything like that. So in general, I think you're going to have to assume that a lot of my videos are going to start running over maybe in that 25 minutes, give or take 5 minutes range. I mean, after all, even in this video, there were things I didn't cover. I was going to talk about how the solar panels on the S6 and pretty much all of the solar panels up there, the big ones like that, how when they stack up, even though they look gigantic, they stack up to only 51 centimeters high. I was going to talk about the solar panel night glider mode. Night glider is a special mode where when they go into the nighttime, they rotate the solar panels so that they're slicing through the atmosphere rather than being facing the atmosphere, because even up as high as they are, there's still some atmosphere that is slowing down the station as it goes, and the big solar panels, you can imagine, can catch a lot of air molecules unless they rotate them so that they're cutting through like wings. And then when they go back into the sun side, they rotate again so that they are facing the sun and bringing in all that energy. And I never talked about any of that stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that is going to be missing if I don't extend the videos a little bit longer. So, next time on the Gateway project, we are going to be launching the JEM, well, it's actually a few things, all part of that Japanese section, the last 3 segments. All three of them are oriented around exposing scientific experiments to space, so they're all ending in EF, meaning exposed facilities. So we'll put those three up next time, and until then, I will see you later.